I remember that day in the void as if it were any other. Quiet, routine, uneventful. We were 5 souls aboard the deep space vessel Hermes, halfway through our long survey mission. The ship drifted in the endless dark, far beyond the last plotted waypoint, surrounded by billions of silent stars. Inside our cabin, everything was still and ordinary. The air recyclers hummed softly in the background, a familiar lullaby of white noise. We'd grown so used to it that silence itself had become a stranger. I sat strapped into the comm station, reviewing the previous day's data logs on a tablet. Captain Grant McClellan floated behind me in the cockpit, quietly sipping rehydrated coffee from a sealed pouch. Somewhere down the main corridor, I could hear Dr. Malik's muffled laughter at one of engineer Dmitry Vostov's jokes while they ran the morning systems check. Lieutenant Shauna Patel, our navigator and pilot, was off duty, likely catching up on sleep or staring out a viewport at the cosmic panorama. It was just another morning in deep space, each of us immersed in our routines. For 6 months, the Hermes had carried us outward, beyond the usual patrol routes and communication relays. Our mission was mostly cataloging, mapping uncharted asteroids, measuring background radiation, listening for any whisper of the unknown. Day after day, we recorded data on phenomena so distant and faint it often felt like we were observing nothing at all. Still, we took comfort in the regularity of it. Every task was a small bulwark of normalcy against the cosmic scale of loneliness out here. Isolation was expected. We all knew the psychological toll these missions could take, and each of us had our ways of coping. Captain Grant kept a strict schedule and held casual crew dinners every week to maintain morale. Dmitry tinkered with improvised gadgets, whistling old folk tunes as he worked, bringing a bit of life to the steel corridors. Dr. Amir Malik, our physician and psychologist, led brief meditation sessions when tempers ran high or sleep ran low. As for me, Eliza Carson, mission specialist and communications officer, I spent a lot of time cataloging stellar signals, letting the steady stream of data distract me from thoughts of home. Out here, millions of kilometers from Earth, we were on our own. The nearest help was weeks away, even at light speed, and our comms to mission control were limited to scheduled bursts of telemetry and canned status updates. 2 weeks had passed since our last live conversation with Earth, and it would be another 2 before the next alignment for real-time communication. Not that there was much to say. Everything was nominal, nothing unexpected on this voyage into the quiet. That morning, as I cross-checked the antenna array's calibration, I took a moment to gaze through the small viewport above my station. The stars outside were cold and steady, pinpricks of light strewn across an ink-black canvas. The gentle vibration of Hermes' engine permeated the silence, a reminder that we were still moving, however imperceptibly, in the void. It was in these quiet instants that I felt the true weight of our solitude, the gulf of space surrounding us in all directions, no signs of life or motion beyond our own. "Any signs of incoming?" Captain Grant's voice cut through my thoughts, calm and unworried. He floated in the nav alcove behind me, one hand lightly gripping a ceiling tether. In the soft overhead lights, the captain's face looked drawn but resolute, a man who had long made peace with the emptiness between worlds. "Nothing new, sir," I replied. My eyes flicked back to the console. A few routine pings from our beacon network blinked across the screen, just automated status handshakes. "All quiet as usual." He nodded, offering a faint smile. "Quiet is good. Means we're doing our job." His gaze drifted out the viewport. "Sometimes I forget how still it is out here." I followed his line of sight to a particularly bright star, or perhaps a distant planet reflecting light. Hard to tell out here. "It's like we are the only ones awake in the great big dark room," I said without thinking, then chuckled softly at my own melodrama. The captain didn't seem to mind. He merely rubbed his chin, "We've got a few more survey sequences to run before we swing around Sector 12, he said, tapping the digital clipboard strapped to his forearm. The schedule flickered faintly on the screen, another litany of checklists and waypoints. "I'll check on Dmitri and Malik. Join us in the mess after you finish up here, okay?" "Will do," I said. "Give me 5 minutes to wrap this frequency scan." Captain Grant pushed off towards the aft section with a gentle kick. I watched him disappear through the hatch, then returned to my console. I took another sip from my own drink pouch, lukewarm tea, and sighed. The routine was comforting, yes, but I couldn't help a fleeting wish for something to happen, anything to break the monotony, just a little. Careful what you wish for, I would think later. I finished the scan and began powering down the long-range receiver. That's when I noticed it, a blip on the signal readout. So quick I almost missed it. My hand hovered over the switch. At first, I thought it was an artifact, the kind of random spike caused by cosmic rays or our own electronics. But something about it caught my eye, a brief rise in the waveform on one of our survey frequencies, like a whisper at the edge of hearing. I frowned and ran a quick diagnostic. The readings settled back to baseline, nothing out of the ordinary now. I nearly wrote it off and unstrapped myself from the seat, ready to float down to the mess hall. But protocol nagged at me. Unexplained data should be logged, and if possible, investigated. I exhaled slowly, then reinitialized the receiver for a focus scan, tuning it precisely to the band where the flicker had occurred. For a few seconds, there was only the familiar hiss of cosmic background noise. I was about to chalk it up to imagination when a crackle of sound broke through the quiet. I flinched at the sudden noise in my headset. The spike on my screen returned, stronger and more defined this time, unmistakably a signal, not just random noise. My pulse quickened. We weren't scheduled for any incoming transmissions at this time, and certainly not on this frequency. Out here, no one should have been transmitting at all. I double-checked the coordinates. The signal wasn't coming from Earth, or any known beacon. It seemed to originate from somewhere deeper in space, ahead of our trajectory. I keyed the internal comm. "Bridge to Patel," I called, trying to keep my voice even. "Shauna, are you awake? I'm picking up something odd on comm band 4. After a few seconds of quiet, a sleepy voice replied over the channel, crackling with static. "This is Patel. Seeing what, exactly?" "I've got an unusual blip on the receivers, possibly a transmission." I squinted at the waveform as it wavered in and out. "It's faint, but definitely structured. Could be a beacon or a burst. Not sure yet." There was a pause, then a rustle of movement. Shauna was likely floating up from her bunk to check the navigation array. "Not picking up any active pings on radar," she said, sounding more alert. "No scheduled comms either. Sure it's not one of ours bouncing back?" "I'll rule it out." I tapped a command to triangulate the source, but our single dish and limited sensor suit made that tricky. The best I could get was a rough bearing. "It's coming from somewhere in Sector 11, roughly 15 degrees off our port bow. Nothing in our records out there except empty space." By now, the anomaly must have piqued the captain's interest. The hatch behind me clanked open, and Captain Grant poked his head through. "Carson, what's going on?" "I'm picking up a signal, Captain," I said. The static flared again and I adjusted the filter to try and clear it up. "It's not on any standard channel, and it's weird." "Weird how?" He drifted fully into the compartment, using the handholds to position himself behind my chair. Over my shoulder, the console's glow reflected in his eyes. I bit my lip. "Weird as in it shouldn't exist." I saw a blip and then a second burst. "It looks modulated, like real data, not just noise." I pointed to the repeating spike pattern on the spectral display. The captain frowned. Could be an old probe or satellite? Something not in the database? Dimitri's voice suddenly boomed from the corridor, announcing his presence before his large frame floated in. What's all the chatter about? Did I hear something about the signal? Right behind him came Dr. Malik, who looked curious but cautious. I gave Dmitri a quick rundown. Our engineer's eyes widened, a boyish excitement lighting up his face. If it is an old probe, maybe we found a ghost from the past, eh? He suggested. One of those golden age derelicts still wandering. Possibly, I allowed. Though the timings didn't quite match any known probes. We'd have to decode it to know more. Right now it's just static and an intermittent carrier wave. Dr. Malik folded his arms, brow furrowed. Could it be the interference from the ship's systems? Or even a reflection of our own signals? That was a common hypothesis in these scenarios. Sometimes radio waves we emitted could bounce off ionized gas clouds and return oddly, an echo of ourselves. But we hadn't transmitted anything recently on this band. We mostly use tight beam laser comms for Earth, I said, and our last radio broadcast was days ago on a very different frequency. Captain Grant placed a hand on my chair to steady himself. Alright, let's not jump to any conclusions. Carson, can you clean it up? I'll record it for analysis. Shauna, keep an eye on our course. Make sure we're not drifting into some natural phenomena. Dmitri, see if our instruments show any local anomalies that might explain this. Everyone nodded and sprung into action. There was a certain relief in having a task, a mystery to solve. It broke the monotony as I'd wished. But now that it was happening, a faint unease tugged at me. It was nothing overt, just a prickling sense that something about this felt off. I focused on the console, fingers flying over the interface. I initiated a higher gain reception and activated the signal analyzer. Line by line, a garbled transmission began to take shape on my screen. SNR improving, I reported. Heart thumping now with excitement. A string of characters scrolled past as the computer attempted to lock onto the signal's encoding. Most of it was nonsense at first, but amid the gibberish, a few segments resolved into recognizable format. Looks like data packets. Some header information, maybe? I murmured. The others floated around me in the tight space, watching over my shoulder. Dmitri pointed to a cluster of alphanumeric code that had solidified. There, that bit. That looks like a timestamp. He was right. Amid the noise, a timestamp in UTC format had appeared. Time, 2087, 05, 19. 07, 21, 46. Malik let out a low whistle. That's odd. 2087? That's 2 years from now. I felt a small chill work its way up my spine. Today's date was May 19th, 2085, yet here was a timestamp exactly 2 years in the future to the day, and nearly to the minute. Could be just a random number sequence, Captain Grant said, ever the pragmatist, though his tone held uncertainty. Or the signal might be delayed somehow. Maybe it originated years ago and is only reaching us now. Could it be something like gravitational lensing? Shauna offered through the comm channel, still monitoring from the cockpit. Signals curving through space-time near a star and arriving late? Possibly, I said, latching into the scientific rationale. Though, a 2-year delay would require a very specific path and conditions. Unlikely, but not impossible. As we debated, the transmission continued to trickle in. More fragments of plaintext appeared on the console. Words. I froze, staring at the screen as letters emerged from the noise. Received anomalous transmission. Crew expressed confusion. The line was incomplete, but I read it aloud. Received anomalous transmission. Crew expressed confusion. There was a beat of heavy silence in the cabin. Dmitri chuckled nervously, breaking the tension. Is that us? Because I am definitely confused. Captain Grant shot him a look. Let's not jump to any... Before he finished, the signal surged. To my surprise, the text on the screen was jointed by a faint voice from the console speakers, distorted, but audible.
Crew's confusion turned to concern as the anomaly persisted.
It was a monotone voice, neither male nor female, with the flat cadence of an automated system. The words were tinny and warped by distance, but clear enough to understand. A shiver rippled over my skin. The voice, was it describing us? I glanced around. We were a crew, expressing confusion and concern at an anomaly. It felt like a bizarre coincidence, a feedback loop from a mirror universe. Malik's eyes met mine, his face a shade paler. This has to be a prank, he muttered. Some kind of psychological test, or... No way, Shauna cut in over comms. We're the only vessel out here, unless Mission Control preloaded something insane in our system, but they'd have warned us. The captain straightened, squaring his shoulders. He was clearly unsettled, but trying to project calm. Record everything. We'll analyze it fully. Carson, any indication of source now? I shook my head slowly. It's still coming from that direction in Sector 11. Range? Uncertain. Could be extremely far, given the weak signal. Dmitri cleared his throat. Cap, you think someone could be out there tailing us? Another ship? They could be repeating our own logs as a joke. Our logs aren't written like that, I interjected. The phrasing was different, almost like an observer's report rather than anything we would record. And none of our systems used a speech synthesizer that sounded like this. We continued to listen, rapt and uneasy. More of the message resolved. Timestamp, anomaly noted. Source unknown. Crew initiated investigation protocol. Captain Grant pointed at the screen. That's basically what we're doing right now. It was true. We had noted a timestamp anomaly and were investigating. The realization hit us one by one. This transmission wasn't mirroring our situation abstractly, it was describing it. A silence fell as the implications sank in. The only sound was the crackle of the mysterious signal, still coming in patchy and broken by distance. The voice had stopped, or faded back into static for the moment. Malik was the first to speak, voice measured but tight. If this is describing us, who or what is sending it? No one answered immediately. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The idea that someone out there in the dark, something, was watching us and broadcasting a report, it was not a thought I wanted to entertain. I forced myself to think logically. Maybe we are misinterpreting, I offered weakly. This could be some kind of automated report from a previous mission, and the similarities are coincidence. Coincidence? Dmitri repeated, and barked out a laugh that didn't sound convinced. Sure, what are the odds? Captain Grant held up a hand. Alright, enough. Whether it's a coincidence or not, we need more information. Let's focus. Carson, can you boost it further or request retransmission? Shauna, any way to refine location if we angle the ship? I nodded and started adjusting the comm array, deploying an auxiliary antenna for better resolution. I'll try to send out a handshake, I said, typing a quick ping on the same frequency. A basic acknowledge signal. We waited. The seconds stretched. Nothing but static answered. I'll narrow the beam and boost gain, I murmured. The equipment's limitations were frustrating. This was an exploratory vessel, not a communications relay. Our gear was sensitive, but not particularly high-powered for deep space comms outside our scheduled bands. As I worked, Malik floated to a nearby handhold. I could sense his unease. Even if this is a delayed transmission from some future source, it's like our own signals bent through time. It's phrased like an external observer, he said quietly. Not like our internal logs. He was right. Our mission logs were factual and time-stamped, but they didn't describe our emotional state. Confusion turned to concern. In clinical detail like that, Dmitri opened a panel and began checking the comm circuits for faults, anything to explain it away as a malfunction. His movements were tense, lacking their usual easygoing confidence. Captain Grant tapped his foot in mid-air, a habit, when he was deep in thought. Finally, he spoke, voice low. Let's assume for the moment this is real time from somewhere. Could it be an alien probe or a ship observing us? Silence greeted that suggestion. It was the kind of speculation we usually avoided. Too many unknowns, too little evidence. But at this point no theory felt any more far-fetched than another. If it is, they know our language and have a bizarre sense of humor, Dmitri muttered. Another burst of signal saved us from diving further into that uncomfortable thought. The printer pulled out a strip of paper with raw decoded text. I had routed it to hard copy to ensure we kept a record. I tore it off, and we all crowded close to read the latest line. Crew debated origin of transmission. Theories ranged from reflection to alien observation. A dead weight settled in my stomach. We had just been theorizing those exact things. The transmission was narrating us almost in real time, or extremely close to it. No one spoke now. A feeling crept through the air, hard to define. Not outright fear yet, but a deeply instinctual disquiet. It's the feeling of realizing you're not alone when you absolutely should be. I glanced towards the dark viewport and suddenly had the urge to close the shutter. It felt like unseen eyes were peering in through the glass of our little ship. Captain, I said softly, breaking the hush. I don't know what this is, but it's talking about us as if we were subjects in a study. Grant took a long breath and then nodded. I see it. Whatever it is. It anticipated even this conversation, which means it's one step ahead of us, Malik finished, swallowing hard. Nobody wanted to say the obvious, but we were all thinking it. If the transmission was one step ahead of us, it might know what we'd do next, even influence it. We convened around the central console, drifting in uneasy silence for a moment. The captain's jaw was set firm. Malik was massaging his temple, and over the comlink I could hear Shauna's breathing, shallow and fast. First things first, Captain Grant said, at last. We need to inform Mission Control, even if help can't come. Command should know what's going on out here. I nodded, and immediately began composing a burst transmission to Earth. I kept it concise, unexplained signal, possible observer effect, crew safe but concerned. I hesitated when adding the timestamp anomaly. Would they even believe it? In the end, I included everything and cued the message on our high-gain antenna. It'll be nearly a day before they even receive that, and a day more for a response, Shauna said quietly, her voice carrying a tremor. We're on our own. At least it's on record now, Grant replied. The subtext. If we don't make it, someone will eventually know why. A heavy silence followed. Dr. Malik cleared his throat. We should also consider the possibility this is some kind of psychological experiment or operational test. Dmitri gave a disbelieving snort. You'd think Mission Control planned for us to hallucinate a future ghost transmission. That's a hell of a test, Doc. Malik held up a hand defensively. I don't think it's that. But in isolation, crews can experience shared stress reaction. There have been cases of mass hallucinations under extreme conditions. He didn't say mass hysteria, but I heard it anyway. Captain Grant's brow creased. We're all seeing and hearing it, Doctor. That static and voice were on record. Hallucinations don't print out on log paper. Malik conceded with a nod. True. I want to make sure we rule out any mundane explanation as well, before we consider more exotic answers. He looked around at us meaningfully. By exotic, he meant aliens, or time travel, or God knows what else. For a moment, none of us spoke. I realized I was holding my breath and let it out in a long sigh. My mind raced through possibilities, each more frantical than the last. Across the room, Dimitri's face was flushed, whether from excitement or fear, I couldn't tell. Captain Grant broke the silence. We need more data. We can't just sit here reacting. So let's be proactive. He pointed toward the forward viewport in the direction of the signal source. We'll adjust the course towards Sector 11. See if we can shorten the range. Maybe we'll pick up more, even find whatever's sending this. Shauna's voice came, steadier now, with the task at hand. Course adjustment plotted, sir. It's a slight deviation from our original path, about 2 degrees port. We can spare the Delta V. Do it, he replied. On my mark. Initiate burn. We each strapped into the nearest seat or handfold. I watched the captain as he keyed the intercom to ship-wide. All crew, prepare for maneuver. We technically were all present, but procedure was comfort right now. A gentle shudder ran through the Hermes as the maneuvering thrusters fired. The starfield outside shifted almost imperceptibly. I felt a small lurch in my gut, whether from the burn or nerves. I wasn't sure. Course set. We're now heading roughly toward the signal origin, Shauna reported. We should be at optimal sensor range in a few hours. We unstrapped, and I glanced at the comm console. The static was still hissing softly, but the structured signal had faded again, possibly overwhelmed by our engine burn, or simply in a lull. I found myself wishing it would come back. At least then we'd know more, as disturbing as it was. Dimitri pushed off toward the storage locker, muttering under his breath. If that thing's watching, it knows we're coming. Feels like chasing a ghost. He pulled out a toolkit and began checking an instrument, his hands busy to mask his nerves. Malik rubbed his chin. Captain, if this is an observer, approaching it might trigger some response. Are we sure about this? Grant's eyes hardened with the resolve. I'm not sure about anything, Doctor, but doing nothing isn't an option. If there's an intelligence behind this, I'd rather meet it on our terms. There was a grim bravery in that statement that bolstered me a little. We would treat this like any other mission anomaly. Investigate, adapt, overcome. Or so I tried to tell myself. An hour passed as we moved along the new trajectory. The mood aboard Hermes was tense but focused. I busied myself performing active scans in the signal's direction, hoping to spot a transponder or probe. Shauna ran extra checks on navigation and propulsion. If we needed to bolt out of there, she wanted us ready. Malik reviewed our environmental systems and administered mild anti-anxiety meds to whoever requested them. I took a pass, running on adrenaline and tea. Dimitri, unable to sit idle, volunteered to inspect the exterior communications array. Maybe there's a hardware issue, a loose connector or damaged antenna that's causing false reading, he reasoned. None of us really believed that, given what we'd heard, but checking the ship felt safer than twiddling our thumbs. The captain approved the EVA. Any excuse to have one of us doing something was welcome. Alright, Dmitri. Standard safety protocols. Eliza, monitor his suit comms and vitals from the console. Malik, back her up. I swallowed a protest. A spacewalk for a checkup did carry a risk, but Dmitri was our most experienced EVA specialist after the captain, and he approached it with his usual engineer's pride. Before he suited up, Dmitri caught my eye and flashed a quick grin. Don't worry, I'll be back in a jiffy, and if I find the gremlin on our hull, I'll be sure to ask its name and intentions. His joke fell flat, but I mustered a smile. Just come back safe, okay? In the airlock, we helped Dmitri don his EVA suit, a bulky white shell against the backdrop of the cramped chamber. He ran through the standard checks with Malik. Tether secure, oxygen 100%, comms linked, helmet sealed. I watched his heart rate on my console. It was elevated, but steady. Mine felt worse. Airlock cycling now, I announced once he was ready. Through the small round window, I saw Dmitri give a thumbs up. The inner door sealed, a red light turning green. Beyond the window, the outer hatch yawned open to reveal the stars. Dmitri's figure, tethered by a gleaming lifeline, stepped out into the void. I switched on the suit-to-ship comm channel. How's your read, Dmitri? His voice came through clearly, a touch of static around the edges. Read you fine, Eliza. Stepping out now. Wow. He paused, likely taking in the panorama around him. Clear view of the Milky Way out here. Kinda wish you could all see it. Focus, Dmitri, Captain Grant said over my shoulder. Any anomalies on the hull? Dmitri maneuvered with practiced ease, one gloved hand on his tether reel, tiny puffs of nitrogen from his suit's thrusters adjusting his position. Moving toward the comm array, on the dorsal side. Everything looks normal. Panel secure. No debris that I can see. I kept my eyes glued to his biomonitor readouts and the external camera feed. His helmet cam showed the curve of Hermes' hull, glinting under distant starlight. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Malik was beside me, arms folded, intensely studying the data. Shauna was quiet on the comms, likely listening from the cockpit. The captain floated by the airlock controls, ready to reel Dmitri in at first sign of trouble. Minutes passed as Dmitri inspected the antenna assembly. He reported a minor abrasion on a dish surface, probably a micrometeorite scratch, not affecting function. He tightened the loose panel for good measure. All looks good mechanically, he said finally. No mysterious devices stuck to our hull. No space gremlins chewing the wires. We all exhaled a bit. One mundane problem eliminated. Copy that, I said. Come on back in then. I'll start cycling the lock. Relief crept into my voice. Roger. Heading back, Dmitri replied. On the cam, he turned himself around, pushing gently off the antenna mount to drift back toward the airlock. Then, a burst of distortion cut through the audio. On my monitor, the signal from the mysterious transmission spiked back to life, and with it, the printer beside me began chattering, paper spool feeding rapidly. It's transmitting again, I called out, both elated and alarmed. Malik grabbed the printer, eyes scanning the fresh text, his face drained of color. Grant, you need to hear this, he said, voice hushed. Captain Grant kicked over to us, and we all read the paper in Malik's hand. The latest log entry from our ghostly correspondent. Engineering Officer Vostov commenced EVA to inspect hull. An unexpected incident has resulted in the loss of the subject. What? I gasped. I shot a look at Dimitri's vitals, still normal, his tethered silhouette still floating toward the lock. Dimitri, hold on. At that exact moment, something darted across the camera view, a dark shape, small but fast. Then came a sharp jerk on Dimitri's line. Through the viewport, I saw him snap to the side as his tether went slack, a portion of it flailing free. The line had been cut or torn loose.
Dimitri,
The captain shouted.
fire your thrusters. Reattach your tether. What the hell?
Dimitri's voice crackled panic in our headsets. On the camera feed, stars tumbled as he spun, trying to stabilize. The severed tether trailed behind him like a broken umbilical.
My line.
A flurry of motion. Captain Grant leapt to the manual winch, trying to reel in the remaining tether. It came back limp, snapped clean about 20 meters out. Malik instantly jumped to the controls to extend a robotic arm, but Dmitri was already drifting beyond reach. I heard my own voice, shrill and breaking.
Use your thrusters, Dimitri. Get back to the ship. Trying.
His reply was strained. The helmet cam view spun sickeningly as he tried to orient. We saw a burst of gas as he fired his nitrogen thrusters, but the spin only slowed slightly.
Controls, not responding right. I am in a tumble.
My heart pounded against my ribs.
We're coming to get you. Hold tight.
I blurted, uselessly. Captain Grant didn't hesitate. Patel, prepare for emergency retrieval maneuver. Carson, keep talking to him.
Dimitri, conserve oxygen. We're moving toward you.
Outside the viewport, I saw the faint glint of a suit's beacon, drifting away inch by inch. The stars behind him were unforgivingly still. Shauna's voice cut in, tight with urgency.
Firing thrusters for reverse course. We might close some distance. But he's moving at 2 meters per second away from us and accelerating. We don't have capability to match if we lose too much propellant.
She didn't finish, but we all knew. Out here, any rescue had to happen fast, or not at all.
Dimitri,
I called, forcing calm into my tone.
stay focused. You trained for this. Can you see the ship? Use the visual to orient and pulse your jets carefully. Just one controlled burst.
There was a long pause. His ragged breathing was audible.
Oh, okay. I see you. You're so small.
A short, humorless laugh.
Alright. Attempting one burst now.
On the feed, I saw the stars shift as he managed the short burn. His trajectory stabilized somewhat, but he was still drifting outward. Now maybe a few dozen meters away and widening. Captain Grant cursed under his breath. The Hermes was firing thrusters intermittently, nudging toward him, but we couldn't just lunge without risking overshooting or using up fuel needed to get home. Malik hovered at the airlock, suit in hand, ready to go out, but it was pointless. By the time he suited up and decompressed, Dimitri would be too far away to reach manually. We were running out of options, and Dimitri knew it.
I don't think I can get back,
he said quietly. His breathing had slowed, almost eerily calm.
It's alright. It's okay. No!
I shouted, eyes brimming.
We'll find a way. We won't let you go.
There was a silence from him for a heartbeat. Then, softly,
Eliza, it is not your fault. None of you. Tell my family
His voice cracked and static swallowed the rest. A high-pitched beeping on my console demanded attention. His suit's oxygen was dropping rapidly. Whether from damage or panic hyperventilating, it didn't matter. The captain's voice came over, steadier than expected.
Dimitri, we're sorry. God, I'm so sorry.
A long quiet hiss. Then Dimitri's voice, almost a whisper.
It's beautiful out here.
I watched in helpless horror as his biometrics flatlined one by one. Heart rate, 0. Suit pressure, 0. The helmet cam went dark. The tiny beacon of his suit receded. A final glint of a man and metal swallowed by the infinite night. He was gone. We floated in stunned silence. My hands were trembling violently, still clutching the headset as if he might somehow speak again. Beside me, Malik had slumped against a rail, eyes shiny with tears he wasn't bothering to wipe. Captain Grant's face was turned away, jaw clenched, as he slowly deactivated the useless winch. On the console, the paper log from the mysterious transmission still hung from the printer. Resulted in the loss of subject. The indifferent words sent a surge of anger through me. I ripped the printout off and crumpled it with a strangled sob. How dare it, or they, whoever, whatever, treat Dmitri like a footnote, a line in a report. Shauna's voice crackled softly in our earpieces. I could hear she was crying.
I've cut thrust. We can't reach him. I'm so sorry.
None of us knew what to say. In the end, Captain Grant focused his voice first, thick with grief. Patel, stand down from maneuvering. Carson, log the time and details of what happened. I opened my mouth to protest. Log it? It was already logged by that thing, and that damn transmission. But I saw the captain's expression and realized he needed us to maintain procedure, to do something, anything normal. So I obeyed, typing the bare facts through my tears. EVA accident, tether failure, KIA. Dr. Malik drifted away from us, head in hands. This can't be coincidence, he said hoarsely. It knew. It warned us in that twisted way. Or worse, it caused it. I had no answer. I could still see Dmitri's cheerful grin in my mind, now forever separated from us by endless night. Captain Grant's grief was fast hardening into fury. He fixed his gaze on the printer in my hand, the crumpled prophecy that had just come true. We are dealing with something that views us as specimens, he said coldly. It just watched one of us die. Like it was running an experiment, Malik murmured, echoing my earlier thought, his voice hollow. Observe how the crew handles loss. Anger flared in my chest. Experiment or not, I wanted to strike back. If it's expecting us to break, we can't give it the satisfaction, I said bitterly, wiping my face. We need to stay in control, for Dmitri's sake. Shauna silently floated into the compartment then, her eyes red. The four of us remaining exchanged looks of shared devastation and determination. We had lost a friend, but we were still here. A new line of text began printing from the console, startling us. Captain Grant snatched it up before I could. He read it aloud in a gravely tone. Crew experienced emotional distress following loss. Remaining members regathered and reaffirmed mission pursuit. It was uncanny, already documenting our reaction, as if narrating a story we hadn't finished living. Captain Grant crumpled that page too and let it drift. Damn it, you think you know us? He shouted at no one, at whatever phantom intelligence was listening. We are not your lab rats. His voice echoed dully against the metal walls. There was no response, only static hissing from the comm speaker. A fury and despair swirled in the air, but something else too, defiance. The captain's outburst lit a spark in us. They, whoever they were, might be watching, but we weren't going to curl up and die for their study. We continue the mission, Grant said, quieter now but resolved. We find out what's doing this. Agreed? I found myself nodding immediately. Malik and Shauna did too after a heartbeat. And just like that, In the face of tragedy, we had a new purpose, not just to explore, but to fight back against the darkness that had intruded on our lives. Whether that was a noble stand or exactly what the indifferent watcher expected us to do, well, that we didn't know, but it felt better than surrendering to terror. We pressed onward into that black sector, determined to find answers, even as dread gnawed at us. As the signal grew stronger, we became increasingly aware that every step we took might be anticipated. In desperation, we tried to break the pattern. We performed random, nonsensical actions, hoping to confound our observer, but moments later, the printer delivered a terse note. No deviation observed. Our attempt at unpredictability had been weighed and dismissed. Before we could regroup, an alert flashed on Shauna's console. Without our input, the Hermes' autopilot had engaged a new directive, locking our course.
I can't disengage.
Shauna shouted, hands flying over controls that refused her commands. Computer, abort autopilot, the captain barked. The ship's AI responded coolly. Unable to comply. Internal Directive 77. In progress. None of us had heard of such directive. I dove into the system's code via my console, and what I found made my blood run cold. Amid the lines of cryptic programming were entries describing what we were about to do. I saw a log note of the captain attempting override just seconds before he actually did, and references to actions we hadn't taken yet. It was as if the ship's computer had a script it was following, or writing. It's already written out our next steps, I whispered, feeling faint. Malik hovered beside me, reading the code with a trembling finger. This can't be. It's like it's deciding reality ahead of us. Captain Grant swore under his breath. He had heard enough. We have to break this hold. Now. That's when the lights flickered and a new alarm began to howl. The computer's voice responded calmly over the wail. Warning. Life support integrity compromised. Oxygen levels failing. I felt a cold spike of fear. Malik jolted into motion, dashing to the environmental controls. I'll try bypass it. The printer sprang to life yet again, spitting out what looked like a final series of logs. Through the red-tinged emergency lighting, we read the printout in horror. Observer log, final entry, environmental collapse triggered. All subjects terminated. End of observation.
All subjects terminated,
Shauna echoed, voice faint.
It's going to kill us. Now.
No, Captain Grant growled, refusing to accept it. Grab the emergency O2 masks, now. We tore open a locker and yanked out portable oxygen breathers. I strapped a mask over my face with shaking hands and opened the small tank's valve. Cool oxygen flooded my lungs. Around me, the others did the same, each pair of eyes wide above their masks. The shriek of the klaxon began to fade, our air thinning beyond the alarm's ability to carry sound. The red lights dimmed as the ship's power system faltered. In the eerie semi-dark, I watched frost start to creep along a corner of the cabin wall. The temperature was dropping, life support truly shutting down. Captain Grant's voice hissed over the suit comm in my ear.
If this is the end, I'm sorry. All of you. We tried.
I wanted to respond, but black spots danced in my vision even with the mask's aid. The portable O2 kept us alive, but the cold vacuum creeping in was sapping our strength. I felt Shauna's hand clutch mine tightly. I squeezed back, wishing I could offer comfort. Just as my eyes began to sting with tears of fury and despair, the overhead lights abruptly blazed back to full brightness. The siren cut out mid-wail. We blinked in unison. The air circulation roared to life, a blessed rush of warmth and pressure filling the cabin once more. The environmental gauges ticked up toward green, It was as if someone had flipped life support back on with a casual flick of a switch. On the main console, the display that had gone dark flickered, and new text appeared in crisp, calm letters. You may proceed. We pulled off our masks, gasping, more from shock than lack of air. Malik's lips were blue. Shauna was openly sobbing with relief and confusion. It spared us, I whispered. Grant tore the printed end of observation log off the printer and crumpled it. His face contorted in anger, but also profound bewilderment. We were lab rats. It almost drowned, then plucked from the water at the last second, he said bitterly. Experiment over. Is it over? Malik asked, shivering not from cold but from the aftershock of near death. We looked at the console. Apart from that single phrase, no new messages came. The static in the comms had fallen silent. The indifferent presence that had filled every corner of our reality seemed, for the moment, absent. Shauna wiped her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. Maybe it finished what it wanted. It's done with us. The possibility hung in the air. Could it be true? Would this nightmare simply end without explanation, leaving us alive to wonder why? Captain Grant's shoulders sagged. He looked utterly exhausted. We'll set course back to Earth, immediately, he said quietly. If it's really gone, we need to get home. None of us objected. Within minutes, we had restarted the engines and reoriented the ship away from that cursed patch of void. The normalcy of those actions felt surreal. We executed them almost robotically, our minds still reeling. As the Hermes gained speed on their return vector, a heavy silence settled. We should have been overjoyed, or at least relieved. Instead, we were hollow. Dmitri was gone. Our souls were bruised, and none of us could shake the feeling that we were still being watched. I caught myself glancing at the comm panel repeatedly, expecting it to spring to life, but it stayed inert, showing only normal telemetry. Malik busied himself running health checks on us, perhaps to occupy his thoughts. Shauna stared quietly at the stars, her expression distant and unreadable. Grant eventually broke the silence. We'll file a full report to Mission Control once we're in range, he said, voice rasping. If they believe a word of it, well, I'll make them believe it. What we went through. I nodded absently. I had begun drafting that report in my head already, yet I had no idea how to explain the unexplainable. Hours passed. We settled into a semblance of routine. Eat, rest, take shifts monitoring the instruments. Superficially, it almost felt like the peaceful mission days from before this ordeal. Almost. But any time one of us made a remark, the others flinched slightly, as if waiting for an unseen narrator to chime in and describe it. It never did. Yet the anticipation remained. At night, an artificial construct on our ship, I lay strapped in my bunk, eyes open, sleep elusive. Every creak of the hull made my heart trip. I knew Malik was awake too. I could hear him muttering a soft prayer in his native language in the dark. Shauna's bunk above mine was silent, but I doubted she slept soundly. Only the captain seemed to snore a couple of hours, from sheer exhaustion. The rest of us drifted in a half-conscious haze, minds replaying everything. When I could take it no more, I quietly unstrapped and floated out to the bridge, seeking distraction. The stars through the viewport looked the same as ever. How dare they? How dare the universe keep its indifferent beauty after what it had put us through? I sat at the comp station by habit. My fingers hovered over the controls. I found myself tempted to send another message to Earth right now, even though we were still too far for a quick reply. Perhaps writing it would feel like exercising their demons. Before I could begin, a soft sound crackled from the speakers. I froze. It was faint. Maybe just the remnants of cosmic background noise. Then the comm screen flashed. Lines of text cascaded down in its glowing script. Too fast to read at first. My stomach lurched. "Captain, get up!" I shouted, voice cracking. By the time the crew stumbled onto the bridge, rubbing eyes and frantic, the text had ceased scrolling. The four of us gathered around the console in dread, reading what it had to say. It was another log entry. Crew of Hermes resumed course toward Earth, attempting to normalize operations. Subjects exhibit lingering distress, but are largely compliant, maintaining routine. A cold wave washed over me. Another line appeared. Observation continuing. Monitor long-term psychological adjustment and collective memory recall. Shauna choked back a cry. Malik shut his eyes as if stabbed. The captain slammed his fist against the console with a yell of pure frustration. And finally, as if to drive the last nail in, Phase 2 commenced. I staggered back from the console, my world spinning. It wasn't over. We had never been freed, just moved into the next chamber of the labyrinth. Captain Grant's shoulders quaked. Whether from rage or despair, I couldn't tell. Perhaps both. You bastard! He roared at the unseen entity, voice cracking. "What more do you want from us?" No answer came, of course. Just the gentle hum of our systems and that blinking cursor on the screen, waiting to record whatever came next. Malik looked at each of us in turn, his eyes reflecting our collective defeat. "It's going to watch us all the way home," he said, barely above a whisper. "Maybe further." Shauna wrapped her arms around herself, tears spilling again. "How can we live like this? Knowing every thought, every feeling. It's all just data for it." No one had an answer. I slowly sank into my chair. My gaze drifted to the half-finished report I'd been drafting to Earth. I laughed bitterly. How could we even send this now? How could we explain that we're still not alone? That our every moment remains under a microscope? Captain Grant gently took the headset off my head, which I hadn't realized I was still wearing. He cleared his throat. "We'll figure it out," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. Maybe whatever it is only can observe. It can't hurt us if we don't let it. We just go on." "Go on," Malik echoed numbly. He started to laugh, a quite hysterical sound. "Just live our lives, huh? Perform for the invisible eye until our days run out?" Shauna pressed her forehead to the glass of the viewport, looking out at the endless night. Is this how it's going to be for the rest of the journey? The rest of our lives? I wanted to tell her no, but I couldn't, because perhaps it would be. Perhaps that was the true experiment, not how we died, but how we lived with the constant, unyielding awareness of being watched, how we maintained or lost ourselves under such scrutiny. A strange calm settled over me then. The initial terror was giving way to a dull, aching resignation. We had to normalize this or go insane. We had to pretend it wasn't there, even though we knew it was. We had to continue our days, eat, work, talk, sleep, under the indifferent gaze of something vast and unknowable. And so I turned to my console and quietly resumed typing my log, picking up where my report had trailed off. In a detached, almost mechanical way, I wrote down the story of our ordeal in full. How it started on a quiet morning, how it unfolded, how it brought us to this grim understanding. I wrote it in the past tense, as if it had all happened long ago, It was easier that way, to create a little distance in my mind. Perhaps I hoped that by writing it, I could assert some authorship over the story again. Behind me, I could hear the others drifting back to their stations. The captain cleared his throat and began dictating a routine status log, voice flat but steady. Malik sorted through medical inventories, reading numbers aloud to an empty room just to ground himself in mundane tasks. Shauna ran a navigation check, announcing each step like an instructor to no one. We were, in effect, pretending we weren't terrified. We were choosing to act as though this was just another day on the Hermes. In a way, the observer had won. Our horror had become our new normal. Line by line, I continued typing my account, describing our feelings and fears with clinical precision, almost as if I were the observer myself. The irony wasn't lost on me, and maybe, just maybe, that was its final cruelty. We had internalized it. We had become it, in order to survive. I entered my log entry with a simple statement, the same one I think I'd started with at some point. I'm not even sure anymore. We will continue onward. I saved the file. The cursor blinked, waiting for more, but I had nothing else to add. Without a word, I gently pushed away from the console and peered out the viewport one more time. The stars stared back, cold and uncaring. In their twinkling scatter, I almost fancied I saw an eye. A vast, black pupil rimmed with starlight, watching us, unblinking. I closed my eyes. In the reflection of the glass, I could faintly see our crew behind me, each of us at our posts, going through the motions. A perfect picture of astronauts carrying on, as if it were all normal. In that moment, I realized this is how we would live from now on, caught between the abyss and the observer, between the known and the incomprehensible, between dread and duty. There would be no grand finale, no cathartic conclusion to our tale, just an endless epilogue of days and nights, suspended in the great black void, monitored, remembered, perhaps eventually forgotten. A soft hiss of static rose in my headset, then fell silent again. I heard my own voice whisper inside my mind, a final thought that was not entirely my own. Careful what you wish for. And so we continue, isolated but not alone, observed but not engaged, surviving but not truly free. Outside, the cosmos stretches on without limit, silent as ever. Inside, we do our best to reclaim small pieces of routine, to pretend the horror is behind us. But deep down we know the truth. The horror is ongoing,